The sun hung low over the jagged horizon, bleeding red across the parched earth like a wound that wouldn't close. Elias Thorne reined in his horse at the edge of Dust Creek, the town's wooden sign creaking in the hot wind that carried the scent of sage and distant rain that never came. His boots hit the dirt with a soft thud, stirring up a cloud of fine powder that clung to his faded denim and the worn leather of his chaps. He adjusted the brim of his hat, eyes scanning the cluster of weathered buildings, the saloon with its swinging doors half off their hinges, the general store where a few locals lingered on the porch, chewing tobacco and watching him like vultures. Eyeing a fresh kill, Elias hadn't come here looking for trouble. He'd been riding the trails for months, chasing work from one ranch to the next, the weight of his past a shadow that stretched longer with every mile. His wife and boy gone in. A raid 5 years back, their homestead burned to ash by men who called themselves law but acted like wolves. He didn't talk about it. Words wouldn't bring them back. And silence was the only companion that didn't ask questions. The auction was already underway in the town square. A makeshift platform of splintered planks where the sheriff, a barrel-chested man named Harlan Crow, barked orders like a carnival barker. Next lot, folks. Prime stock here, Clara Voss, widow of the late Jed Voss, debts unpaid and land forfeit. Bidding starts at $50. She's sturdy, knows her way around a kitchen and a plow. Who'll give me 50? Elias paused at the edge of the crowd, his hand resting on the butt of his Colt, more habit than intent. The woman on the platform stood straight-backed, her dress threadbare and patched, hair tied back in a loose braid that caught the dying light. Her eyes dark, unyielding swept over the gathered men, a mix of ranchers, drifters, and the town's greedy underbelly. Just a quiet defiance that made the air around her seem thicker, heavier. 60, called a voice. From the back, belonging to Silas Reed, the owner of the biggest spread east of town. His face was flushed from whiskey, his mustache waxed to points that quivered with each bid. 70, countered another, a miner with dirt-caked hands and a leer that turned Elias's stomach. Harlan grinned, his badge glinting like fool's gold. That's the spirit. 80, anyone? Come on, she's got fire in her, break her right, and she serve. You well? Clara's gaze locked on Elias for a moment, then flicked away. He felt it like a brand, that look. Not begging, not broken, just ... waiting. He shifted his weight, the dust grinding under his heels. This wasn't his fight. He had a job. Lined up at the McAllister Ranch, 10 miles out, branding cattle, mending fences. Simple work for a man who wanted nothing more. But as the bids climbed 90, 100, the murmurs grew. Whispers of how Jed Voss had crossed Harlan, owed money on a rigged poker game, and ended up with a bullet in his back. Official story. Now Clara, left with nothing but the clothes on her back, was the final payment. 120. Silas bellowed, stepping forward with a proprietary smirk. Elias's jaw tightened. The heat pressed down, sweat trickling along his spine, mixing with the grit that coated everything in this godforsaken place. He could walk away. But something in her stance, the way she held her chin, refusing to crumble, echoed the ghost of his own losses. His hand moved before his mind caught up. 150, he said, voice low but carrying through the sudden hush. Heads turned. Harlan's eyes narrowed, appraising this stranger with the scarred knuckles and the quiet stare. Well now. New blood. 150 it is, going once ... Silas spat into the dirt. 170. She ain't worth the hassle to an outsider. Elias met Clara's eyes again. This time she didn't look away. There was a flicker there, surprise, maybe wariness. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. 200, he countered, his words slicing the tension like a knife through hide. The crowd erupted in mutters. Harlan slammed his gavel down. Elias approached the platform, coins heavy in his pocket from his last payout. He counted them out under Harlan's watchful gaze, the metal warm from his body heat. Clara stepped down without a word, her boots scuffing the wood. Up close, he could smell the faint lavender on her. Buried under dust and despair, they walked to his horse in silence, the town's eyes boring into their backs. She hesitated, fingers trembling slightly as they gripped his calloused strong. Careful not to hold too tight. The ride to the McAllister Ranch took them through the desert fringes, where mesquite twisted like arthritic fingers and the wind whispered secrets in the canyons. The sun sank, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. Elias felt her breath against his back, steady but shallow. "Why?" she asked finally, her voice barely above the horse's hoofbeats. He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched, broken only by the creak of leather and the distant howl of a coyote. "Seemed wrong," he said at last. "Auctioning a person like cattle." She let out a breath, not quite a laugh. "Wrong, don't stop much out here." They arrived at the ranch as stars pricked the velvet sky. The main house was a low adobe structure, flanked by corrals where cattle lowed softly. Old Man McAllister greeted them with a raised eyebrow, but no questions. Elias had a reputation for good work. And that was enough. He showed Clara to a small room in the bunkhouse, spare but clean, with a cot and a basin. "Sleep," he told her. "We'll talk come morning," she nodded, door closing with a soft click. Elias lay on his own bunk, staring at the rafters, the weight of the day settling like dust in his lungs. Sleep came fitful, haunted by dreams of fire and screams. Dawn broke hot and unrelenting. Elias was up early, saddling horses for the day's drive. Clara emerged, dressed in the same faded calico, her hair pinned back. By the time the other hands stirred, biscuits were baking. Their aroma cutting through the chill air. McAllister grunted approval. "She yours?" he asked Elias over breakfast. Elias paused, fork midway to his mouth. "No, just ... The old man chuckled. "Help like that gets complicated, son." Work that day was branding hot irons hissing against hide, the acrid smell of burned hair filling the air. Elias worked methodically, his muscles aching from the strain, sweat soaking his shirt. As the sun dipped again, they sat on the porch. The desert stretched endless, a sea of ochre and shadow. Elias rolled a cigarette, the paper crinkling in the stillness. "Jed," she said suddenly. "He wasn't a bad man, just foolish. Thought he could outplay Harlan at cards. Now I'm the debt. They own towns like this. You know his kind? Lost everything to men like him." The words slipped out, raw and unbidden. He crushed the cigarette under his boot, the ember dying with a spark. She didn't press. Just sat there, the silence between them thick with unspoken grief. Crickets chirped in the brush, a lonely sound, days blurred into a rhythm. Clara took to ranch life with a quiet efficiency, mending clothes, tending the garden patch where stubborn vegetables fought the dry soil. Elias found himself watching her, the way she moved with purpose, the faint smile when a calf nuzzled her hand. It stirred something in him, a warmth he'd thought buried with his family, but trouble brewed. Word from town, Silas Reed wasn't happy about losing the bid. Whispers of outlaws hired to settle scores. Harlan turned a blind eye, his pockets lined. With Reed's gold, one afternoon, as Elias repaired a fence line, riders approached three men, dust-caked and hard-eyed, rifles across their saddles. The leader, a scar-faced brute named Decker, reined in close. "Thorne," he drawled, "heard you snatched Reed's prize." "He wants her back, or compensation?" Elias straightened, hammer in hand. The metal was cool against his palm, a makeshift weapon. "She ain't property." Decker laughed, a rasping sound. "Everything's property out here. Hand her over or we'll take her." The air tensed, thick with the threat of violence. Elias's heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. "Right on." A gunshot cracked, splintering the fence post beside him. "Elias!" Dove rolling into the dirt, drawing his Colt in one fluid motion. He fired twice, once hitting Decker's shoulder, the other grazing a horse that bolted. The outlaws scattered, cursing, but not before promising return. Clara found him later, bandaging a shallow graze on his arm. Her hands were steady as she cleaned the wound, the cloth damp with water that smelled of well iron. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "Didn't I?" He met her eyes, the pain there mirroring his own. For a moment neither spoke. Then she leaned in, her lips brushing his attentive touch, born of shared scars. The kiss deepened, slow and searching, the taste of salt and desperation. When they parted, the world felt shifted. the desert wind carrying a hint of promise, but peace was fleeting. That night, under a moonless sky, more riders came. Elias woke to the thunder of hooves, grabbing his rifle and bursting from the bunkhouse. Flames licked the barn, cattle stampeding in panic. Gunfire echoed, bullets whizzing past as he returned fire. Dropping one assailant from his saddle. Clara was there too, shotgun in hand, her face set in grim determination. "Harlan's men," she shouted over the din. Elias nodded, covering her as a moral dilemma gnawed at him, kill or be killed, but each shot weighed heavy, echoing the violence that had stolen his life before. In the chaos, Harlan himself appeared, pistol drawn, his badge a mockery. Harlan fired first, the bullet tearing through Elias's side. Pain bloomed. Hot and fierce, but he held steady, squeezing the trigger. Blood darkening the dust, the remaining outlaws fled into the night, leaving silence in their wake. A heavy, ringing void. Dawn found Elias slumped against the porch, Clara pressing cloth to his wound. McAllister and the hands rounded up the scattered cattle, the barn a smoldering ruin. Pain blurred his vision, but her hand in his anchored him. "You'll live," she said, voice cracking for the first time. He managed a weak smile. "Reckon I will?" "For what it's worth," word spread. With Harlan gone, the town shifted. Reed slunk away, his influence shattered. Elias healed slowly, the scar a reminder of choices made. Clara stayed, not out of obligation, but choice. They worked the ranch side by side, her laughter a rare but growing sound amid the chores. One evening, as they rode the fence line, the sun setting in a blaze of color, she turned to him. "I was running, Elias, from everything." He looked at her, the lines of his face softened by the light. "We all run. Question is what we stop for." They rode on, the desert unfolding before them, vast and unforgiving, yet holding the quiet promise of a life rebuilt, not perfect, but earned. The wind carried their silence, a companion now, not a burden.